Hello, welcome back to the channel. It's Sarah from I Am Simple Natural Life. Thank you for joining me. Do like and subscribe, and if you do the subscribe and the little bell, you'll get notifications every week when I post new content. So do it, please. Today I'm talking about achieving a balanced lifestyle as a parent. I took part in a panel discussion earlier this week, and it was really good. I really enjoyed it, and this was the topic, and I thought this could be a useful thing to share with you on the channel. So I'm going to take the 3 questions that they asked during the live session and just address them from my point of view on here. So first of all, what is a balanced lifestyle and what does that mean kind of as a parent? It's question number 1. So there is no such thing as a balanced lifestyle. It varies for each person, and what feels balanced to me won't feel balanced to my next door neighbour or to somebody down the road. It really varies, and it doesn't necessarily matter. It's not linked particularly to how many children you've got, or whether you work out of the home, whether you're working in the home, whether you're a stay-at-home parent. Different people need different levels of balance, and some people can devote a lot of time to others without that kind of draining their own battery, and other people need a lot more time for themselves. And so what I think can often happen is that we compare ourselves with other people, and we think, oh my God, you know, they're making their own Play-Doh and they're taking them to the beach, and they spend like hours all day at the museum when I can only manage like an hour, and then we need to get out and get a snack, and they're making all their food from scratch, and they're doing this and that and the other, and oh my God, I'm not doing any of that. And that's really dangerous. That comparison with other people is really dangerous, because you never know what's going on really, and social media, people just post the show reel of their life very often, so they're not showing all the times that maybe they completely just lost the will to live, and they got completely angry with the kids or shouting at them in the car, whatever. So people don't tend to share that stuff. And for everybody, that kind of stuff does go on. So bearing that in mind when you're looking at other people's content and what they're posting or how they're talking about their day, people don't often give you the full picture. So bear that in mind. And actually, whilst seeing what other people are doing can give you some inspiration, give you some ideas, really, I would avoid a lot of that. To be honest, I would avoid a lot of that and just think what feels good to you. So last week I did a YouTube channel which was all about kind of how we can live according to society's expectations, even when the choice doesn't feel good to us. And you may be doing that within your parenting, feeling like you have to do this activity or that activity or be a certain way with your children. I know I did it certainly when I put one of my children into school, and it felt completely wrong to me, on just in my heart, in my head, all levels. It felt wrong, and I still did it because I felt that was what people did. That was the expectation. Bedtimes, does the bedtime that you're doing, like I put the kids to bed at a certain time. Like, to me, I felt 7 o'clock was a proper bedtime for children, and it didn't work for us. And it didn't actually, I was doing it because I felt that's what I should be doing, not because that's what felt good and right for our family. Just be aware of when you are doing things because you feel that that's what you should be doing, or that's like other people would expect that of you, and you're worried maybe about what what people might say or what people might think. They're the big warning flags that your life will kind of go out of balance, perhaps because you're not acting in a way that's actually authentic to you. So what feels good in terms of balanced life for you? Is it having loads of time to yourself? Is it having just a little time to yourself? What activity are you doing? Are you just sitting down and watching some rubbish TV? You know, and people are ashamed of that sort of thing. And actually, if that's how you want to relax and that's what you need to fill your own cup, then that's completely fine. Question number 2 was, how do you make time for yourself as a parent? This is tricky, isn't it? So I had 4 children in 3.5 years. So my eldest was 3.5 when the youngest was born. And you know, and 2 of them have additional needs, one quite profoundly. So I get that getting time for yourself is tricky. And it can feel insurmountable. At the beginning, it can feel really insurmountable. But there's 2 things. Well, one, basically, you just have to start. That's my no-nonsense thing. You literally just have to start. And I did that eventually, not right at the beginning, but I could tell I was getting more and more resentful and just feeling like, you know, like just everyone's like a leech, just taking from me. And it was like, you know, I was going to become an empty shell, and I obviously didn't want that to happen. And yet there are all these very real barriers and reasons why I couldn't make time for myself. That's what it felt like. So my number 2 point on this, as well as, so number 1, make time, just do it. Just do it. Number 2 is a lot of the things, proper real things that are stopping you are actually only a problem because actually it's all the inner stuff that's going on. And when I started, and I'll tell you in a bit how I started taking time for myself, but when I started, I realised actually it was this inner sort of dialogue that I had going on, maybe like telling myself, just feeling that I wasn't really worthy of spending time on or giving care to. And also a huge narrative for me was that I would be a bad mum if I spent time on myself and not on them. If I prioritised my needs, sometimes I felt very much that would make me a bad mum. And I didn't really realise that was going on until I started to try to change things. So when I say just do it, and you're thinking, I can't, I literally can't, I do not have 1 minute of a day that I can spend. I started really simply, I started by drinking 2 litres of water a day. And actually, maybe I didn't even start with 2 litres, but I started with the intention that I was going to drink a lot more every day, because I realised, obviously I was putting the children first all the time, whatever, and some days I just, you know, I wasn't drinking that much and whatever, but so first of all, it was, you know, water, it was doing something good for myself that would be healthy and beneficial, but also it was more than that. It was just a small way that was manageable, a small way that I could show some love to myself and care for myself. So that's why I started with the water. It could look different for you. That was for me, and from that I then developed into the next step, which for me was, I'm going to do just like 10 minutes, not even that, of yoga every day. You know, find an online video thing. And at first it was really hard, and you could look at it like it was a disaster. Some days, you know, the children crawling all over me, I'd have to stop the video God knows how many times, because I'd be getting up to get them bowls of Rice Krispies or drinks or whatever they needed, you know. So what should have just been a 10-minute thing would take ages, and it could be really frustrating, but I did it anyway. I kept going with it because I needed to do it for me. So even if it was a disaster, it was still better to have tried than to have just thought, right, that's it, there literally is no time for me, because I wasn't willing to accept that story anymore. And that was the change, really, was my unwillingness to accept that was what was, yeah, I didn't want that. I just did not want that. And so that's how it developed. And then from there, it's changed and developed on. And now I do lots of stuff every day. And it's still a movable feast, and it changes. But it was just making that conscious decision to just do it, whatever it looked like, and however much of a disaster some days it might be. It was always a success for the fact that I'd tried and that I was actually doing it. And the final question, how do you overcome the stress when trying to be like the perfect parent? Because we all do kind of try to be the perfect parent. We all accept that none of us are the perfect parent or is the perfect parent. But that is something that, you know, we all try to be, I think, the best that we can possibly be, don't we? I think so. And some days that doesn't look very good for me. Other days, I could post it on Pinterest and say, look at my amazing life. But some days it is not like that at all. So how do you overcome the stress? I think it's about, tricky. It's about identifying where the stress is coming from. So is the stress coming from the fact that you're comparing yourself to others? And then why? Why are you doing that? And what are you worried about? Are you worried that your next door neighbour takes her children to all these museums all the time and they seem to just have this amazing time, and you try and take your kids to the museum and they scream around the whole thing and it's just a disaster? You're creating stress by trying to do things that aren't in alignment with you and your family. So, you know, you might try it, you might just see it as inspiration. Wow, she takes the kids to the museum and it's amazing. And then you try it and you think, her kids are different to my kids because that was awful. And then you don't do it again, and that's fine. But the stress comes when you are trying to live and be somebody maybe that you're not. So there's that kind of stress. And I had that. I have a friend, very good friend. And when she had lots of little children as well, quite close in age, and she would take hers to story time at the library, and she would tell me just, oh, how lovely it was and whatever. And I thought, that sounds like a good thing to do. If I was a good parent, I would be taking my children to the library and doing this. So I did. I trundled along with them when they were like really tiny. It was a disaster. My children did not sit and want to listen to that story. Mine wanted to wander around and look at the books and all that kind of stuff. And so I came out feeling like a bad parent, because her kids, they were perfect. They were doing this thing. And then I just thought, actually, that works for her. My children like to do other stuff. That's it. No stress. I'm not going to let it stress me. We're just going to do other stuff. And I can still be a good parent without taking them to story time. So that's my example, or just an example. There will be a gazillion of them when I've tried to do stuff that I think would be a good thing to do. And it's just not me, or it's not them, you know. But then there's also the stress of trying to just find that time that you need. And that's where you start off really small. And so, you know, if you had asked me years ago, did I want time for myself? Yes, I want time for myself. How much? Oh my God, like any time. But, you know, in my mind, I'd be thinking, can you imagine if you had a half a day off? Oh my God. Or a day. Just dreams, absolute dreams. But, you know, any time would have been good. And actually, I wasn't in a place where I felt deserving of that. So that wasn't going to happen. And even if somebody had come and said, I'm going to take your children for the day and you can go and refill your cup however you want, I wasn't in a place really to be able to take that opportunity properly, that it would have made any difference to me. And also, somebody isn't going to come and magic them off all the time either. So it's finding that balance with everybody around, And that's where things like sites of mutual fulfillment come in. So finding things that you can do with the children that feel as good for you as it does for them. So perhaps for me, I'll use my example, if I go to the woods with them, I now take like a picnic blanket to sit on. I take snacks and all of that kind of stuff. I take a book with me and my blanket because I'm always cold. And they can be climbing the trees or re-diverting the little stream, whatever they're trying to do. And I can sit and do my thing while they're doing their thing. And we are enjoying the space together. We are enjoying our time together, but we're enjoying it by doing our own little things within that. And that is a really powerful thing. It was Lucy Aitken-Reid, I think, that I first heard it from. But anyway, by the by, it's Sites of Mutual Fulfillment was a game changer for me, really was, because I was with my children pretty much all the time, still am, and that was a way to get my needs met and to have more balance in my life. It's not just about them and trying to do stuff for them. It's about us, what feels good for us. And we now have lots of stuff that we can do where I'm not feeling like I'm just getting through it because they're going to enjoy it. I'm enjoying it too in my own way. And that was a big game changer to decrease the stress. And also what I was saying with question number 2 about just finding the little things that you can do. And for me, when I started drinking that water, when I started doing that small bit of yoga, the light bulbs were kind of going off a little bit inside when I started to realise some of the reasons why, that story about what a good mum is, and that I could rewrite that story really and think, is that true? Am I not a good mum if I don't spend all my time doing stuff for them? Does that make me a bad mum? And really looked at it and thought, that's not actually true. That was just a story. And when I started showing myself a bit of care, that I felt a little bit more worthy of that care. And then I did a bit more and I felt a bit more worthy and a bit more. And you see, it's just a gradual process. So I think some of the stress can also come when you're doing everything for everybody. You feel the resentment and you also feel powerless to change it, and you're not powerless to change it. You just starts with that little small thing. And for me, it was just drinking some water. For you, it could be sitting down once a day and having a cup of tea. Just making sure that happens once, drinking it while it's hot. And that can be a big challenge if you've got small children particularly. But it goes all the way through. If you've got teenage children, it's still really hard sometimes to find that balance, because you're running them here, there and everywhere. You might still have that resentment because you're just feeling taken advantage of, and that no one's giving you the thanks or the gratitude. Speaking of which, gratitude practice is really, really powerful, really helpful. So whether you're going to write it down or you just think it in your head every day, I do mine before I go to bed. I just do it in my head. I think of 3 things I was grateful for from that day. But to make it extra powerful, you can think about 3 things that you were grateful for from that day about you. So instead of thinking about the going to bed and thinking, oh my God, that 10 minutes of yoga, that was a waste of time. I feel so annoyed that the children just were so annoying and I didn't actually really do anything. I should just give up. You don't go to bed with that mindset. You think in that situation, so it's been a bit of a disaster, but you think, I'm grateful that I tried and I carried on doing it, even though everybody was distracting me, but I did it anyway. So that would be something that you could be thankful for about yourself. And that's really powerful thing, and it helps rewire the brain, because naturally we focus on the negatives and on the threats and those sorts of things. And the more that you can start to rewire your brain and to think about the positive things about your day, and I'm not saying you're going to become some sort of Pollyanna You know, the reality is still you might have had a crap day, but you're grateful that you didn't shout at Billy when he wouldn't put his seatbelt on in the car. You made tea for them when you were really tired and just wanted to collapse on the sofa. And you're thankful that you are going to bed at a decent hour, so that you'll be rested for the morning and you might have a better day. Whatever, you know, it doesn't have to be huge things. That's the point. Just 3 things that you're grateful for from that day. And if you can, 3 things about yourself that you're grateful for. And that's a big change in terms of showing yourself some love. So that is it for this week. Thank you for joining me. Like, subscribe, all that stuff, please. I'd love to if you'd subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next week.